day 6ix9ine sat on that stand.
Yo.
Oh,
man.
You remember, if you're watching the story, they taking him to court in bulletproof vests. They acted like he was telling on El Chapo.
When 6ix9ine sat down for an interview with the Dancer Project, nobody expected fireworks. But what went down next was pure chaos. The host brought up Fat Joe's old comments about 6ix9ine, and instead of dodging the question, Tekashi went all in. He didn't just respond. He exposed Fat Joe right there on camera, and the internet's been buzzing ever since. And what 6ix9ine said this time wasn't just talk. There are a lot of receipts lining up way too cleanly to ignore. So let's break down how we got here, because this story goes deep. We're talking about loyalty, betrayal, hypocrisy, and one of hip-hop's oldest debates, who's really real in this game and who's just pretending. Let's rewind. Fat Joe's been throwing shade at 6ix9ine for years. We're talking interviews, podcasts, and guest appearances, from Math Hoffa's show to conversations with Jadakiss, and every time, Joe's message has been the same. He can't respect a rat. Back on Math Hoffa's My Expert Opinion, Fat Joe made it crystal clear.
Months ago, and it was on my podcast, Coca Vision on Tidal, and I was just trying to school him, because I've been through that, man. I had the heat on me. You know, I was wilding in the streets, so I tried to tell him as a young kid, it's my job, because none of the OGs, when I came into the rap game, schooled me. They could have stopped me.
He called 6ix9ine out by name, straight disrespectful, and said he tried to warn him before the storm hit. Joe claimed that before the RICO case that took down 6ix9ine and his crew, he sat Tekashi down off camera and told him, bro, this path you're on, it ends one way. But according to Joe, 6ix9ine brushed it off. He said the image, the gangs, the chaos, it was all for show. Joe said Tekashi looked him dead in the eye and said, I'm not really doing this, Joe. It's just an image, promotion. I'm good. Joe claims he believed him until the feds came knocking. After the RICO charges hit and 6ix9ine took the stand, Fat Joe's patience ended. He went from warning Tekashi to burying him publicly. In interviews, Joe said straight up, this dude's miserable. He can't even look at himself in the mirror. He's a sucker. I'm convinced he wants to die. And when the host tried to calm him down, Joe doubled down. I'm sober. I'm telling you what he's doing is self-destruction. But even after that, 6ix9ine stayed quiet, at least for a while.
Fat Joe's a
Lean back.
He said, we've been leaning back for 20 years, man. Like,
he said you crowned yourself the rat leader and you wrote the 48 laws of snitching.
if I crown myself the rat leader, he crowned himself as the cap leader.
Let's be real, when people talk about rats in hip-hop, 6ix9ine's name is the first that comes up. Since day one, he's been branded the poster boy for betrayal in modern rap. Fat Joe's been leading the charge and keeping that image alive. He's made it part of his identity, a self-appointed guardian of the code. But that code, it's complicated. See, 6ix9ine's story isn't just about snitching, it's about survival, hypocrisy, and the blurred line between entertainment and the streets. Fat Joe, though, sees it simple. He says 6ix9ine ruined the moral structure of hip-hop. He even said in a convo with Jadakiss, he stayed up late one night thinking about when the streets changed, when it became acceptable to be a rat and still make music. Joe said the turning point was the day 6ix9ine took the stand. He told Jadakiss, bro, I remember watching him walk into court in a bulletproof vest like he was El Chapo. He put real dudes in prison, man. That was the day everything broke. But here's where Joe might have missed something. The culture didn't stop rocking with 6ix9ine because of morals. They stopped rocking with him because the music stopped hitting.
¿Qué tú me vas a decir, Fat Joe? ¿Que ese viejo no se ha pegado desde 2003? Cántame una canción de Fat Joe ahorita que no sea Limba.
6ix9ine hasn't had a charting hit in a while. The shock factor faded, the rainbow hair and screaming hooks stopped selling, and fans moved on. But Joe, he keeps bringing the snitch talk back like it's the #1 issue in the game. And that's where a lot of fans started calling him out. Because if 90% of hip-hop listeners today aren't from the streets, why keep applying street rules to fans who've never lived that life? Think about it. Go to any concert, Drake, Travis, Uzi, whoever, and look around. 70, 80, maybe even 90% of some crowds at shows aren't from that environment. These are people who've never seen a RICO case in their life. They don't care about street codes, they care about music, energy, and image. So why keep judging artists by rules that most of the audience doesn't even understand? And that's exactly where 6ix9ine struck back hard. When Fat Joe's name came up in the Dancer Project interview, 6ix9ine didn't dodge.
You went there?
Yeah, I went there.
This is a sucker.
Oh.
He's a sucker of. No, I'm dead sober. This dude here, this type of shit, this doing, I'm convinced he wanna die. I don't wish it on him or nothing like that, but I'm convinced.
He said, I'm not dissing him for no reason. He didn't snitch on nobody, I know. Then he paused and dropped the bomb. But he's been talking about my name for years. And meanwhile, he's not even living by his own code. That's when 6ix9ine flipped the whole conversation. Instead of defending himself, he went on offense. He questioned Joe's integrity. He said, you talk about morals, but you didn't even take care of your brother's people. And just like that, he brought up one of the most sensitive topics in hip-hop, Big Pun's family. Fat Joe and Big Pun were like brothers. Pun was the first Latino rapper to go platinum, a lyrical legend, and one of the most respected figures in the game. But after Pun passed, things got messy. Pun's wife, Liza Rios, and their kids said they never got the royalties they were owed. According to them, Pun's music kept generating money, but none of it reached the family.
Put a lot of good people in jail, man. It's not entertainment.
Don't tell, dog.
No. He put guys in jail for 20 years. Nice guys who co-signed him. He's out of jail, and he goes on his live.
For years, Fat Joe's been accused of keeping the cash. He's always denied it, saying he looked out for them, even gave them $1 million out of his own pocket. But Liza says she never saw a dime. She even filed a lawsuit against Fat Joe and his label, claiming they were collecting money behind the scenes while telling her there was nothing coming in. Lawyers representing Pun's estate have said in court filings that there was evidence of foreign royalties being collected under the wrong names, meaning someone somewhere was getting paid what should have gone to Pun's family. And when that came out, fans started asking real questions. Because if Fat Joe's whole identity is built on loyalty and honor, how does that square with allegedly leaving your best friend's family behind? That's the exact point 6ix9ine made, loud and clear. He said, you crowned yourself the moral cop of hip-hop, but where's your loyalty when it actually matters? Then he challenged Joe directly on camera. If you're not lying, then on your next show, bring out Big Pun's son, Chris Rivers. Bring him on the Dancer Project. Let's see what he says. And he didn't stop there. He even joked that when Joe saw that clip, he'd immediately hit up Chris like, yo, don't do that interview. How much money you need? A direct call out.
From a lot of trouble. So I always, it ain't just Tekashi, it could be Young Boy NBA or whoever. Whenever I catch one of these young boys, I try to school them and let them know. It just so happened that the Tekashi thing was on film.
It wasn't just a diss, it was strategy. 6ix9ine knew that touching that Big Pun topic would hit where it hurts, Joe's credibility. Because in hip-hop, loyalty to the fallen is sacred. You take care of your brother's family, that's the real code. And if 6ix9ine could make people doubt Joe's loyalty there, he could flip the entire rat narrative upside down. Now to be fair, Fat Joe hasn't stayed silent on that issue. He said in interviews that he's always respected Big Pun's name, that he's helped the family, honored the legacy, and kept Pun's spirit alive. He even claimed he wrote checks personally to Liza, and that at one point they ran through the money. He said, I gave her $1 million out of my pocket, but I told her there's no more after this. But once those words hit the internet, nobody cared about context. Screenshots, old interviews, and legal documents started resurfacing. Fans began piecing things together. Interviews with Pun's widow, clips from lawyers discussing missing royalties, and reports from ASCAP and BMI about unpaid publishing splits overseas. And suddenly, Fat Joe's morality wasn't looking so bulletproof anymore. Here's the wildest part. 6ix9ine didn't even deny being a snitch. He owned it. He said, yeah, I did what I did, but at least I'm honest about it. The people judging me are the ones hiding their own dirt. That's the move that caught everyone off guard. Instead of running from the label, he turned it into a mirror, making people question the so-called real ones. Because let's be honest, 6ix9ine may not be respected by the streets, but he's strategic. He knows that if he can make the real ones look fake, he wins in the eyes of the public, especially the millions of fans who don't care about the code. And it worked. For the first time, the rat had the real ones on the defensive. Around the same time, new reports came out about Liza Rios' ongoing lawsuit. Her legal team argued that Fat Joe and his company, Jelly's Jams, owed unpaid royalties to Pun's estate, not just from the US, but internationally. The lawyer said something interesting in an interview. We found out that in foreign territories, the writer splits weren't properly reflected for Pun's songs. That means there's money that was collected that shouldn't have been. They even pointed out that for years, royalty statements showed unrecouped balances, a technical way of saying you're not owed anything yet. But when they dug deeper, they found money was coming in, It just wasn't being properly accounted for.
He didn't rob no 50 niggas at no gym. That nigga, yo, bro, I'm not gonna lie, bro. Which one's my camera? That one?
Yeah.
This one? That one? Yeah, Fat Joe, you're a like, you're a pussy. Like, I'm not even gonna lie.
So now, not only was 6ix9ine making a moral argument, the legal side was starting to back it up. After 6ix9ine's interview dropped, social media exploded. Half the fans said that 6ix9ine's spitting facts. The other half said that he's just deflecting, trying to drag Joe down to lift himself up. But either way, the damage was done. People started questioning Fat Joe's entire image, the wise OG figure of the Bronx who always preaches honor and realness. On timelines and discords, people were posting side-by-sides, Joe's quotes versus old clips, lawsuit chatter versus interviews with Pun's family. Quick polls on stories and community tabs kept landing near 50-50, not scientific but enough to show the split. Even booking rumors crept in, with people debating the calculus brands always make, heat versus headache. The algorithm doesn't pick saints, it picks engagement, and controversy is premium fuel. Because when the paperwork and lawsuits start lining up with your critics' accusations, it's hard to just brush it off as clout chasing. The appearance of alignment is enough to fog the room, and once that fog sets in, legacy stops feeling like a fact and starts feeling like a debate. And 6ix9ine, he knew exactly what he was doing. Every time someone calls 6ix9ine a snitch, he doesn't deny it. He flips it into a bigger conversation about double standards, industry politics, and selective morality. By bringing up Big Pun's family, he changed the battlefield. Now the question isn't did 6ix9ine snitch, it's who's really loyal. And when Fat Joe preaches loyalty on one side but faces legal claims from the family of his best friend on the other, that's a tough contradiction to defend. 6ix9ine knows that online, winning the frame beats winning the facts. He plants a topic that stings, dares Joe to address it, and lets the reaction economy do the rest. Even the invitation to bring out Chris Rivers is a visibility trap. Ignore it and it looks evasive. Accept it and the conversation shifts to money, care, and receipts. His preferred arena. In that space, he doesn't need absolution, he just needs doubt, big enough to bend perception. This whole situation exposes something deeper about hip-hop today. Back in the day, street credibility was everything. But now, most fans don't care if you're real, they care if you're entertaining. 6ix9ine's entire rise was built on chaos, memes, and controversy, not respect from the streets. So when he calls out OGs like Fat Joe, he's not playing by their rules, he's rewriting them. And that's what makes him dangerous. Because he understands the game isn't about the streets anymore, it's about perception. He knows that if he can expose hypocrisy, he wins the culture war, even if he loses the street one. Promoters and platforms move on a different code. Attention, reliability, conversion. If the clip cycles, if the show sells, if the brand stays loud without blowing up the venue's insurance, you're viable. The spreadsheets don't measure street lore, they measure sell-through. Algorithms don't certify real, they certify retention. And in a landscape where parasocial bonds matter more than paperwork, authenticity is whatever the audience decides it is this week. If you deliver a feeling, drama, spectacle, catharsis, you can outrun 1,000 think pieces. That's the uncomfortable truth. The market rewards the most watchable, not the most righteous. Which is why the person who frames the conversation often outranks the person who wins it. As of now, the tension between 6ix9ine and Fat Joe isn't just personal, it's symbolic. It represents two generations of hip-hop clashing head-on. On one side, you've got Fat Joe, the old-school voice of loyalty, honor, and street code. On the other, 6ix9ine, the new-school chaos agent who doesn't care about the rules, only the reaction. And the truth? Both of them might be right and wrong at the same time. Fat Joe's not lying when he says the culture lost its moral compass. But 6ix9ine's not wrong when he says most fans don't care. What matters now is authenticity, even if that authenticity comes from admitting your flaws. Here's the uncomfortable middle. The culture wants morals but buys momentum. If Joe wants to win this era's argument, he needs more than principles, he needs proof, transparent accounting, straight answers on the pun discourse, and a willingness to address the messy parts on camera without defensiveness. If those receipts land, his message about codes and consistency levels up from lecture to leadership. If 6ix9ine wants to keep shaping the narrative, he needs more than callouts. He needs records that stick. Controversy builds attention. Songs convert it. A real run would let him argue from a stronger place, not just I exposed hypocrisy, but I exposed hypocrisy and I'm still charting. That's how you turn antagonism into leverage. So what resolves this? Not another fiery clip clarity. A sit-down with Chris Rivers would be seismic. A public line-by-line response to the royalty questions would be heavier than any diss. And if 6ix9ine can pivot from spectacle to sustained output, he forces everyone to recalibrate whether the code even moves the needle anymore. Until then, this standoff lives where today's culture lives, in perception. So what does this all mean? When 6ix9ine said, "If I'm the rat leader, Fat Joe's the captain," he wasn't just throwing bars. He was making a statement. The people who claim to live by the code are often the same ones breaking it behind closed doors. And whether you love or hate him, that's a question worth asking. Because at the end of the day, in this new era of hip-hop, loyalty, honesty, and street code might matter less than ever. But hypocrisy still gets exposed fast. So what do you think? Did 6ix9ine actually pull the curtain back on Fat Joe's double life? Or is he just deflecting because the music ain't hitting like it used to? Drop your thoughts in the comments.